Hi everyone, Facebook Live, Thursday night. I know if you watched my Facebook Live yesterday, I actually spared you my shorts and wore my jeans. Unfortunately, I have not been able to do that today because we're back in the studio. And the thing about everything we do at the Performance Partnership, we do it right. I think it's something I got from my dad. My dad always said, if you're going to do something, do it right. So we are in the studio, we have lighting, we have Sony VG30. Somebody's been asking me what camera we use. We're using Blackmagic video interface to live stream this. And it is baking in here. So I am wearing my shorts. And you're just going to have to survive that, unfortunately, tonight. So one of my Facebook friends, Mubasher Latif, Mubasher, you know, if you're on this video, which I hope you are, because you asked for it, then please comment below so that people can contact you. Because Mubasher asked me a really good question, I thought. And a question really that I hadn't thought about personally for quite some time, which was, you know, what's the difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy? What are the pros and cons of each, and how, you know, the results and the approach? So I thought, what a great question, and it really had me think about things. So that's what tonight's going to be about. It's going to be about hypnosis versus hypnotherapy, and I'm going to share something with you at the end of the video. Which is quite controversial. I'm not liked in the NLP world or the hypnosis world for doing these kind of things, because one of the things here's the thing for me. I'm always asking myself, what needs to be present to make a particular technique work for everybody every time? You know, and I hear people going like, well, it works for some people, it doesn't work for others. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's not really that useful. So I'm always asking myself the question, what needs to be present to make each and every technique within NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis, and for that matter, HUNA, to work for everybody every time? And so what I'm going to share with you is the 4 things, or should it be 4 things? No, it should be 4 things, shouldn't it? That makes hypnosis or hypnotherapy work for everybody every time. Right at the end of this video. So, to answer Mubasher's question here, we need to go back in time. We really need to go back in history. Who we got? We got Louise Baker. Hi, Louise. I saw you did you had a fantastic conference for Havening. We've got Jane Gray. We've got Mark Taylor. Great to see you. Thanks for Marie Taylor. That's Sally's writing. There is a Mark Taylor as well, Marie, and he doesn't look anything as beautiful as you. So there we go. So let's talk a little bit about history, because this hypnotherapy is actually quite a comparatively recent term in the history of hypnosis. The term hypnosis came about in 1843, along with and David Key. Hi David, how are you? Good to see you. And Vish, Fixer, Harrow, Fix My Mind. I'm going to be talking about what we do later. So please share this. I'm sure it'll work well. James Braid, 1843, came up with the term hypnosis, neurohypnosis, self-hypnosis, and also hypnosis therapy. Before then, it was known as, you know, mesmerism, animal magnetism, trance, suggestions, etc. So let's talk before this term came about. And this one's way later. Let's talk about this one initially. So a lot of the history of what we now call hypnosis actually comes from France. And hypnosis was used for two things. It wasn't used for what we would call today therapy. It was used for two things. It was used for enabling people to have pain-free surgery, so hypnotic anesthesia, and for physiological healing. Let's talk about the first one first, because this predates chemical anesthetics. So, if you broke your leg, if you broke your femur or whatever it is, you would have surgery. You'd have an amputation, essentially. And no anesthetics at this point in time, and the people that would do that surgery would be the people that had the tools, which would be either butchers or carpenters. And they had around about 90 seconds before a person died of shock. So there wasn't a lot of room for elegance in the surgery that they were doing. So it had to be very, very quick, very, very fast. The anaesthetic was a bottle of gin, normally, and biting down on a piece of leather. Franz Anton Mesmer came in on the scene and was doing his version of what we might call hypnosis mesmerism, though I think it's probably more similar to Huna than hypnosis, using the Kayave element, the spirit element, to put people into a trance-like state. But he was definitely putting people into a trance-like state. And he would enable people to have surgery totally pain-free. Other people that also came on board with what Mesmer was doing was Elliotson and also Esdale. Esdale was doing some phenomenal things out in India where they were doing major surgery, because there was a war going on at the time, to enabling people to have pain-free surgery. So hypnosis was about enabling people to have surgery and no pain. Major use. Second major use was for physiological healing. This really started to come about. I mean, names in the frame here would be Libo, a French doctor working out in the sticks in France, got interested in suggestion, and Kaylee, hi Kaylee, great to see you. I hope you enjoyed the prac last week. And Libo had very poor patients. So he would give them two things. He would give them a prescription, which they'd have to pay for, or he would give them the idea of trance and suggestion. Many of them took the latter choice. And he was getting phenomenal results. So phenomenal results that the head of the medical school in Nazi in France, Bernheim, was a little bit, pissed off with what Libo was doing, so went to check him out. Steve Carr, hi Steve, great to see you. Danny Hicks, we got some great people online this evening, which is really exciting. So Bernheim went to see Libo to give him a piece of his mind, essentially, but saw the great work that he was doing with enabling people to heal themselves physically. So Bernheim actually asked Libo to come and run a hypnosis training at the medical school in Nancy in France. They wrote a book together, Suggestive Therapeutics, which is essentially a book of case studies of where they used what we would now call hypnosis and suggestion to enable people to physically heal. This really was where hypnosis was at in the 1800s. This is what it was used for. Another Frenchman, a French psychologist, I guess you would call him, Pierre Janet, did some fairly out there experiments, to be honest with you. We wouldn't be allowed to do them today. He wrote those experiments. So here's one. And again, it was all about the physical body. What Pierre Janet did was he suggested to somebody that he would be touching them on the arm with a pencil, but he touched them on the arm with a hot soldering iron. They neither flinched and neither did their skin blister or burn. What he then did was to actually give the person a suggestion that he'd be touching them on the arm with a soldering iron, hot soldering iron, but touching them on the arm with a pencil, and the skin burnt and blistered. So things that we just would not be able or allowed to do, you know, and you might say quite rightly, these days with hypnosis. So hypnosis was all about physical healing and about anesthesia. That was it. Freud, Sigmund Freud, actually trained with Liebo and Bernheim in France at the medical school in Nazi. And he took up hypnosis. But for a number of reasons, which we won't go into right now, he wasn't particularly that good. One of the things was he had false teeth. In those days, false teeth were made of wood. He had quite a fairly serious speech impediment, and therefore he couldn't really speak that well, wasn't that great at doing hypnotic inductions. So rather than saying, just going on his own way, he actually discredited hypnosis. And he also said that, you know, the unconscious mind was the place where we kept evil, dirty, nasty, perverted thinking, and we really shouldn't go there. And at that point in time, really, with what he was saying, hypnosis went into huge decline. It was only really kept alive by stage hypnotists at this point in time in the music hall. You've got William James, the grandfather of modern-day psychotherapy, or psychology rather, I would say, with his book Principles of Psychology, did a chapter on hypnosis, which is a great chapter. You know, if you haven't got that book, Principles of Psychology, William James, then do get that book. And the chapter on hypnosis is very, very good. So hypnosis has kind of disappeared. It's gone into a major decline, had a major heyday in France, and they were getting phenomenal results with it. Sorry, Sally's just put a notice up for me. David Key, Principles of Psychology. Don't only buy it, read it. That made me laugh. That's an in-joke with me and with me and David. So hypnosis went into decline, and was really just kept alive on the music hall with stage hypnosis. Then we had a new emergence of hypnosis, but it was still hypnosis, not hypnotherapy. And we've got a number of key characters, a number of key players. One would be obviously Milton Erickson. Another would be George Estabrooks. There would be Andre Weitzenhofer, and also Dave Ellman. Now, these were around the late 1940s, early 50s, I think, when they first came onto the scene. 1958, Erickson, massively influential in getting the American Medical Association to accept hypnosis as a valid treatment for certain symptomologies, as long as they were performed by a medical doctor or a psychiatrist. Same for Dave Ellman. Now, Erickson probably, you know, and I've done some research about this today, and it's a grey area. I think Erickson was probably the first person to actually begin using hypnosis for what we would call today therapy. So he was doing hypnosis, or using hypnosis, with people to enable them to achieve personal change, mental and emotional change, rather than physiological change. Erickson did very limited things with physiological change. Blood pressure, weight loss was around about where he drew the line. As a medical doctor, he actually believed that these conditions were physical, so he didn't go there with hypnosis. But I would say that from my research, two people Milton Erickson and Dave Ellman started to use the notion of hypnosis for therapy rather than physiological healing and for anesthesia. And, obviously the whole history of the impact that Milton Erickson has had on the world of therapy, and particularly on the world of NLP. A lot of people in the NLP world think that Erickson's only contribution was the Milton model, and that is absolutely not the case. A lot of the ideas around submodalities come from Milton Erickson. Obviously, a lot of the things around rapport, particularly crossover matching, crossover mirroring, come from Milton Erickson. So Milton Erickson had a massive influence on neuro-linguistic programming. The Ellman technique is the chosen technique that we use in our fixed mind interventions, because it enables people to achieve a relatively deep trance very, very quickly, and they can also do it for themselves afterwards. Our entire approach in fixed mind is Ericksonian, right from the very, very start. So these are things that we use massively and we believe in massively. This is the reason why, Erickson used to say, I don't care whether you're into a light trance, medium trance, or a deep trance, either is fine. Because he was doing therapy, he was working with people around personal change, he was working around behavior change, emotional and mental change, rather than physical change. So Ericksonian inductions tend to be very, very good in the main, for getting light trance, particularly if you're doing it covertly, without people knowing about it. Hypnotic anesthesia requires deep trance, which is where George Estabrooks, direct authoritarian hypnosis, and also Dave Ellman really score there to enable you, Dave Ellman particularly, to enable people to go into the required level of deep trance that we need to be able to do hypnotic anesthesia, for people to be able to have, essentially quite major surgery without chemical anesthetics, which is an important thing, particularly for people that have an allergy to anesthetics. So there's a little bit about the potted history of the whole thing, and the method is very, very similar, and the intention is different. Both of these induce trance, but I think this one here, hypnotherapy, working with people using the trance-like state to enable people to achieve therapeutic outcomes, therapeutic goals. Hypnosis has, if you like, a broader application, which is why one of the things, for the performance partnership in our trainings, we actually use that in our brand rather than that, because of the broader applications to it, and because of the history to that. Now, how long have I... I've already done 20 minutes of talking here. So, here's the thing that I like to think about whenever I'm teaching anybody anything, which is, what needs to be present to make a particular technique work for everybody every time? And this was something that Tad James and I came up with when we totally redesigned our trainers training in, I think it was around about 1996, 1997. And because on our NLP trainers training, we teach people how to do demos. And demos actually are the be-all and end-all of your trainings. Your demos absolutely have to work, and they have to be dramatic, and they have to be really convincing. So Tad and I sat down, and so Tad asked me, Dave, you've been training now for all of 3 or 4 years. Have you ever had a demo not work? And I went, no. You've been training for way longer than me. Have you ever had a demo not work? And he goes, absolutely not. It's just not fathomable. It's just not. You can't even hold that idea in your mind. So what we did was we said, like, okay, so what do we need to do to make a demo work every single time that we do a training, to the point where even before somebody gets up on the stage with you, you know it's going to work. It's a foregone conclusion. We looked at that. Then I started thinking, well, why are we waiting till trainers training to teach this? Wouldn't it be of value that our practitioners know what needs to be present to make a swish pattern work with everybody, every time, with every client? You know, what needs to be present for a submodality map and a cross, from like to dislike, for instance, with foods, to work with everybody every time? What needs to be present for a collapsed anchors to work with everybody every time before you even start? Because, you know, I think when you're doing this thing, therapy, you've got one shot, you've got one hit. As soon as you do a technique with somebody and it doesn't work, or it creates wishy-washy results, people start to go, maybe it doesn't work, maybe NLP doesn't work, etc. So we started filtering this into all of our trainings as to what needs to be present to make a certain technique work with everybody every time. And I asked myself the same question about hypnosis. So here's the final little bit of this Facebook Live. Could be a little bit controversial. Some of you are going to love it, some of you are going to hate it, but you know, what the heck? Why change 24 years of my NLP career at this point in time? So here's the first thing. The client has to have the belief, I was in trance. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people, when they come to a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist, have a particular misconception that being in a hypnotic trance is like being unconscious, like being knocked unconscious or having general anesthetic. For any of you that have experienced hypnosis, you know that's not true. So a lot of people go, I don't think I was in trance because I heard everything you said. So we need to install an experience with the person so that they believe they were in trance. That is where convincers are really important. Erickson always used to use arm catalepsy. George S. Brooks used a whole array of trance phenomena to convince the person I was in trance. Then, second belief we need to install is I'm suggestible. So, if the person doesn't have this actual belief, then they're not going to make the suggestions work for them. I mean, it's very, very simple. This is where the suggestibility tests come in. And, you know, as I say on our trainings, the suggestibility tests are not tests. Hi, Jonathan, up in Glasgow. How are you? Good to see you. Loved your video that you put up earlier today, by the way. Thought it was really great. I'm suggestible. This is where the suggestibility tests come in. They aren't tests for whether the person is suggestible. Everyone is suggestible under the right conditions. What they actually do is they install that belief in the client that, yes, I was in trance, yes, I'm suggestible. These are vital. If these aren't there, it's not going to work. Then, it's got to be okay with the client's unconscious mind to get the result. Something that we check all the time in our NLP techniques is it totally okay with your unconscious mind to have an undeniable conscious experience of getting this result today, whatever the result is. And if we don't get a really congruent yes, then we've got to do some work with the unconscious mind to reframe that so that it becomes yes. Because otherwise what we're going to get is it's not going to work, or it's going to work short term, and then the problem's going to come back. This is a vital piece that needs to be asked of the client's unconscious mind before you even proceed. Then the final one of the four things that need to happen for hypnosis to work with everybody every time is correctly structured and formatted suggestions. Which is something, obviously, that takes Pippa Gagey. Hi, Pippa. Thanks for sending love. Love you too. And so these are the four things that need to be present for hypnosis to work every time. Now, let's just talk about that for a second, because this is a particular thing which I have a bit of a, what would be the word around it? I have a bit of beef around this. Because I did a demonstration, and you can see the demonstration on my YouTube channel, Performance Partnership YouTube channel, or just search for David Shepard NLP. I did a demonstration with someone around getting rid of a phobia of flying. I'm not a sports person particularly. Lewis, if he's watching, will agree with this. And what I had, I didn't know, was one of our Commonwealth runners, Commonwealth sprinters, was my demonstration subject, and he got a phobia of flying. He couldn't even get on to the airport without being on Valium. And I did a demonstration with him using logical levels of therapy, conversational change technique, and then timeline therapy, negative emotions #1 technique to wipe out his phobia of flying. In around about, I think if I looked at the video, it's about 12 minutes. Totally gone. Couldn't find it. When he came up on the stage, his heart was pounding like mad, and just gone. Completely gone. 12 minutes. Then I called a break, and I had somebody come up to me during that break, and he said to me, "Can you do the same thing for a phobia of public speaking?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Well, I'm confused now." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, I've just seen you get rid of a phobia in around about 10-15 minutes. And I went, "Yeah, there was a bit of setup before the guy got up on the stage, but yeah, 10-15 minutes." He said, "I just started working with a hypnotherapist, and this hypnotherapist has told me it's going to take at least 30 sessions, 1 session a week, for me to start to feel any benefit whatsoever. And I've just seen you do it in 10 or 15 minutes." I said, I can't remember the guy's name, "Go and see James, my business partner in Fix My Mind, or one of our other fixers in Richmond, in Bristol, in Harrow, Central London, Winchester, wherever it is, because, if you have a phobia, we will enable you to get rid of your phobia in 1 session." That's what we're all about. It's about how do you get rid of your problem, phobia, panic attack, whatever it may be, in, metaphorically, your lunch hour. And this is how we do it. So for those of you out there that have studied hypnosis, hypnotherapy, didn't study with me or one of my hypnosis trainers, then these are the things to start thinking about. This is the way that you will have a massive impact on your practice and a massive impact on your own therapy clients. Get these in place. It's 1 session. Look on my YouTube channel. I deliberately make my videos a little bit like Vegas, you know, because I think they need to be Vegas, baby. They need to be dramatic. They need to be entertaining. You can see a number of demonstrations there where I work with people around a phobia of public speaking, got the people on the stage, did the Dave Ellman triple handshake induction, which I actually got personally off of watching videos from Tom Silver. Watch Tom Silver's videos, he's a great guy. I got it from there, and literally I just give people a straight suggestion. Your phobia of public speaking will disappear and it will be replaced with this. Bring them out of trance, get them up on the stage, and then they present. That is the power of this. I love hypnosis. I think it's one of the most powerful things in the world. And there's my Facebook Live for this week. Thanks, Mabasha, for asking me that question. I never even thought about all of this stuff. And we've just done nearly 35 minutes. Sally's given me the card saying, please, your time's up, get off the stage, get off the camera. So there we go. Anyway, see us. If you're new to this and you like it, then we're here every Thursday at 1900 London time, whether that's British summertime at the moment or GMT, or it'd be 1800 UTC, which is this new universal time standard. So hope you enjoyed it. If you want to put comments down at the bottom, if you want to put any questions in there, then please do. And until then, we shall see you next week. My name's David Shepherd. Thanks for joining me on my Facebook Live.